Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Gabrielle and today I'm doing like sort of why does this happen every single video? I don't know. I hesitate to say I created this because I feel like you don't really create anything new anymore on YouTube, but this is an idea I thought of. It may or may not exist, but I wanted to talk about palettes that I can't bring myself to buy. Like, I like them, or there's something about them that I like, but there is something else that is just too something and it keeps holding me back, and it just keeps pulling me by the hair and saying no, you don't need it, nope, nope, and it works, right? There's even a couple of these palettes where there is a chance I might get it but it's only a couple, it's certainly not all of them. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts on it, especially because a lot of these palettes are hyped, if not all of them. With Black Friday coming up as well, I think it's important for us to kind of get in this mentality, sort of. Like, Black Friday can be a lot of impulse spending. A lot of it isn't really planned. It's not just in makeup, like just brands in general just come out of nowhere. They're like, we're having a sale, oh my god, 80% off or whatever the fuck it is, and you're like, oh. This phrase is as old as time, but the best way to save money is to buy nothing. It really is true. So that could be just something to kind of tell yourself. And yeah, if you're interested in hearing me kind of talk myself out of things that I kind of want or don't want, but I just don't want to fall into the hype of it, then subscribe and enjoy. Can I talk? It would make sense for me to insert photos, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to start with a bang. This palette, this choice might piss people off. Beauty Bay Wilderness. I cannot bring myself to buy this palette. This is the palette where this has the highest chance of me buying it one day, maybe. I mean, I don't know if it's gone because Beauty Bay like released it and then they were like, oh, it's gone, LOL. And then everybody was like, why is it gone? And they brought it back. So I don't know. I'm sure this will be, I think this is limited edition, so it will be discontinued at some point. But even when it was discontinued, I didn't find myself like, I need this, oh I wish I had it, you know. This palette's very pretty. This palette has my tones, it really does, but I have this. I know I fucking have this, you know. It was $15, you know, 15 pounds and $15 US. I was on the site and I was like, should I, shouldn't I, kind of like flirting with the idea, but then I was like, this is the palette where I was like the most logical with myself, and I was like, are you gonna use it though? Because I feel like I buy palettes and I use them, but I don't use them like obsessively, which is kind of how I want to be when I buy makeup. Like, I want to be able to say I've tried every single shade, and for me that just doesn't always happen. I didn't want this to be a palette that I bought because it was pretty but then didn't use, because I've definitely done that in the past, and it's kind of why I don't really want to buy palettes right now. Like, there's two that I want. Three? Two? The reason that this palette has a high chance of me still buying it is because of the shimmers. The shimmers look beautiful, they look like something I would want to try. And I've heard that Ace Beauté's new formula, like they reformulated their shimmers, and I feel like it's even more amped up than the previous reformulation of the brand. Like, basically the shimmers in their Tropical Vibes palette, somebody said that those seem similar to Beauty Bay's, so that just like intrigues me because I already want the Tropical Vibes palette. But you know, like even the red shimmer, like I really want a good red shimmer, like a nice dimensional sparkly red shimmer, and I don't have one. And I know that the Wilderness doesn't have that. It's definitely like the shimmer that pops out the least to me, and I don't know why red shimmers are just bad all the time, but I don't know. This palette's very pretty. It is very pretty. I just can't. I just look at it and there's always this little bug in my brain going, no, you don't really want it, you just think it's pretty. And that's something that we need to kind of tell ourselves sometimes. Do you want this in your house? Do you want to use this? Or do you just think it's pretty? You're having a nice time now looking at it, but are you actually going to care for it? It's like a puppy. Even though it's only $15, I know that it's like you're doing the most for a $15 palette, but it's like, so Some of the palettes I'm going to talk about are discontinued, so there's no way I can buy them unless I look for them on Poshmark. But when they were available, I was like, alright. And then being discontinued means nothing to me. With the first one being Melt Beetlejuice, both of the palettes. I thought that the Melt Beetlejuice collection made sense, right? Because the owners are really big Beetlejuice fans. And I've mentioned before that I thought that the palettes were repetitive, and that's why I didn't buy them. They were repetitive, and the packaging is very pretty. I even liked what they were going for, and I think Beetlejuice just has a really, really, really nice aesthetic, even though Tim Burton's aesthetic is basically just white people. But anyways, the colors in that movie are really, really appealing to me, and they would just work, right? Even the people that bought the palettes are like, no, yeah, these are pretty fucking similar. Like the greens are similar to each other and the purples, and even the waiting room palette. That palette intrigued me more because I'm like, oh my god, red and gray, like, yeah, that's so cool. But again, those shades were the same. And I don't know, like, what it is. Sometimes I feel like black and white shadows are a cop-out and a waste of space. Like, when you don't have a lot of pans, I feel like you're kind of just putting those in to fill the space. And sure, it can work. It can definitely work sometimes. And I believe that the white that they put in that palette was more of a cream. So that could be interesting. This palette and the My Chemical Romance palette, I feel the same about. Their color stories are sort of similar-ish. Not really, but sort of. I feel like, oh yeah, this could be cool. But there's just something about it where I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, and I love My Chemical Romance. I'm really good at separating my love for this band, for this artist, and the makeup. I'm really, really good at that. Like, not letting it brainwash me into liking it, you know? If I don't like the band, artist, celebrity, then yeah, obviously I'm not gonna like their brand. But if I do, it can kind of make me excited, but I can easily just look at it and be like, this does nothing for me. And that's kind of how I felt about My Chemical Romance. I kind of like got sidetracked, but I mean, it is a palette that I couldn't bring myself to buy. But with the Melt palettes, yeah, I'm like, I want to like this. I really, really want to like this, but I can't get with it. Speaking of separating things from the makeup, I have 3 ColourPop things to talk about, and they're all collabs. Animal Crossing. I don't think I've talked about Animal Crossing yet in my videos. I love Animal Crossing. I love Animal Crossing so much. Like, I've been playing it every day lately, especially with the new update. I got Happy Home Paradise, and it's so cute. And I love my little school and my little homes that I've been designing. And it's just fun. It's just so much fun. It's probably my favorite game because I feel like we take it for granted how cute it is. Like, I feel like people complain about Animal Crossing a lot, and I'm just still so, like, infatuated by it. But regardless, ColourPop and Animal Crossing. My cousin sent this in our group chat, which is really just me, her, and Danny. But she sent this, and it was when it had been leaked. It was when Trendmood posted it and then deleted it. It was a TikTok because somebody had already done a TikTok of, oh my god, look at this, and it's like the green screen thing. So I searched Trendmood, and I'm like, it's gone. What is this? And then I honestly thought that Nintendo was gonna say, ColourPop, fuck you, we're not doing this collab anymore, because they're very like strict. The collab still happened, and I had a feeling they were gonna do quads. Like, I remember it was before they revealed the inside. They finally did the sneak peek, but they hadn't shown the inside yet. I was like, first of all, this is a lot of things. Second of all, I have a feeling those are quads. And they were. So I was like, oh, cool. But then you get to the inside and you're just like, ColourPop has done this. Like, I almost fell for it. I almost was like, oh, but it would be cute. You know, and it would be cute. It would be really fucking cute to have this shit in your room. All the quads had pressed glitters, right? And I realized you're trying to convince yourself to like pressed glitters. You fucking hate pressed glitters. Don't do this. Don't do this to yourself. The color stories in general just could have been better. When I saw what people were doing, this is my like redesign, it just made me sad. Because I'm like, man, if ColourPop did that instead, like, oh, that would be so good. Like, Blathers and Celeste, I understand Blathers is brown, but Celeste is red. Like, that would have been cool as fuck. To like incorporate her colors in this palette, like brown and red, that would easily have my heart because I'm boring. But no, and they added pressed glitters to everything. And there's like other things they put too. Like I thought the lip products were weird. The Super Shock, like that could be cute. I thought the packaging was cute, but yeah, it just fell short for me. Like it's cute for decor, but I wasn't no. Lizzie McGuire.
Lizzie McGuire.
And I've talked about this in the new makeup releases when it came out, that, you know, I love Lizzie McGuire. And Danny, he actually sent this to me. It's funny sometimes, he sends me like makeup related things. He'll be like, oh, did you see this? Because it's like funny when brands do collabs with stuff that he likes, like The Sims, which we all know how that went. But he sent me the picture of ColourPop sneak peeking, like, oh, look at this collab, who is it? And it was Lizzie McGuire. You could see when you zoom in. Then we get to the reveal and I'm like, oh, it's fine. Again, there's a press glitter, which is like, stop. Stop, literally. It's like me as a child and you're smacking her. Like, what are you doing? And like the color story is okay, but I kind of just felt like a pinky purpley palette with a green. Like a singular green, which I guess that is sort of the colors of Lizzie McGuire, but I don't know, something about it was just telling me, besides the press glitter, something about it was just telling me like, you don't really want this. But this was one of those palettes where I'm like, if Lizzie McGuire was not on this packaging, you would not care. You simply would not be considering it. And that is just something that we should think about as a society. If Lizzie McGuire wasn't on this palette, would you give a shit? Would you just scroll past it? The answer is probably... I mean, no, I can't tell you what your answer is, but you know what I mean? Like, the same thing goes with the Animal Crossing collection. I would be like, what the fuck are these quads? And then I would move on. Like, I would not care. ColourPop does really well with the packaging, like they always have. We gotta get on big brain mode, okay? Right, the third palette is the Powerpuff Girls palette. Again, this color story would bore the shit out of me if it didn't have Powerpuff Girls on it, you know? The top row is neutrals, which I hate that ColourPop does that all the time with their collabs. The top row is always light neutrals, and it's like, okay, we have these, and we have these from you. Like, just give us the color story that relates to the thing that you're collabing with. Powerpuff Girls was my favorite preschool show. It's not really a preschool show, no, but it was like my favorite show when I was a little kid, and then my favorite show became like That's So Raven. But Powerpuff Girls was my favorite show when I was very young, and my favorite character was Buttercup as a kid, so I've always been this way. And I guess another thing that could talk me out of this palette was, no, they're collabing with the new Powerpuff Girls, the revamped version, which I think is corny. I don't like the new one. Yeah, these colors, it was just like a green matte and a green shimmer, a pink matte and a pink shimmer. And there was a pressed glitter in this one too. I remember when it was like sneak peeked, like they were like, oh, guess who? But it was very obviously them. I was like, watch this just be a green quad, a blue quad, and a pink quad. And it wasn't, but still, it was just like, One of their blushes, I think it was called Saves the Day. It's very cute. It's a very cute color. If I were to make an order from ColourPop, I'd probably put that in my cart. I'd be like, ah, fuck it, like it's something, right? Because I love Powerpuff Girls, and it would be so cute to have Powerpuff Girls makeup, but I wasn't feeling it. It was just very like underwhelming. No, I don't think I showed this yet. I've showed this person's Instagram before, but she made a rendition of the Powerpuff Girls palette. This was actually before ColourPop came out with theirs. So if the color story was more like this, I'd be like, yeah, that's good shit, I'm gonna get it. But it wasn't. Right, 2 Natasha Denona palettes. I've fallen into a love affair with Natasha Denona. Ever since I tried her bronze palette, like the very first shadow that I used, I was like, I get it, man. I get it. I get the vibe that not all her palettes are created equal, because I feel like there's some palettes of hers that people don't really care for, and I'm pretty sure that's like formula wise. So that's like kind of annoying. These palettes, there's 2 of them. They're both discontinued. They're both objectively pretty to me, and they both still are objectively pretty to me, but I couldn't justify. The first one being the gold palette, which I've mentioned before. It's just expensive. I would just need to make sure that I would use every single shade, because the palette's $129. The more expensive a palette is, the more I need to love every single shade. right? And I just wasn't sure. I mean, I probably would use every single shade in this one, but I think something was still just telling me like, no, you wouldn't, just to like talk myself out of spending the money. And this palette is very beautiful, right? Even when I see something that looks like this, I'm like, oh, that's so pretty, you know, but I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't bring myself to do it, and it's discontinued. If I would have seen, like, say I walked into a Sephora and they were trying to get rid of it, so it was like half off, so then it would be $64.50. And that's still, you know, like a big chunk of change, but that's how much her midi palettes are. It would be the size of a midi palette. I would do it, right? I would have easily been like, yes, okay, you got me with my pants down, I'm gonna get it, but you know, that didn't happen. So yeah, I mean, it's very pretty. It is very, very pretty. And it's the kind of palette where if someone got it for me, and I'm not hinting at anything, I'm really not, I'm just saying, if someone got it for me, I'd be like, thank you. Like, thank you so much. Like, not in a sarcastic way. I would just be like, some of these palettes I would gladly accept as a gift. Some of them I'm really fine not having, like the ColourPop ones. But yeah, that could be another good way to look at makeup too. Like, if you're looking at something and you're like, oh, I don't really know, like, think about if you got it as a gift, how would you feel? Would you feel like, oh, yes, oh yeah, man, hit the slay button? Or all right, the second palette is the Love palette. This palette's very pretty. I remember when this came out, I was like, fuck. Because I hadn't tried Natasha Denona before. I was well aware of who she was and her prices, but I was kind of just like, no, I'm not doing that. I think the biggest thing that drove me away was the price. But then again, when I like got the bronze palette and I realized I liked her formula, I looked again at the Love palette and I was like, oh, should I? But I think again, I feel like if a palette is like $60 or more, that's when I start analyzing all the shades. Like, am I gonna use this though? For this palette, I think if there wasn't like that purple in there, I would have got it. And again, it's like, I don't know what it is with me and purples. I just don't seek for them. And I also don't use them. Purple is the color that I'll tolerate. Orange though, I don't like orange. Something I realized about myself, I don't like orange. Maybe orange blush, like I could fuck with that. But I don't fuck with like orange lips or eyeshadow on myself. And I don't wear orange clothes. I realized like, wow, I don't like the color orange. Purple like is fine. It's a fine color. And there's so many different variations of purple. You're bound to like some of them. So yeah, I would just rather it be solely like a red and pink palette. But I really like the idea of like having reds and pinks in one palette, like a one-stop shop, which I think is why a lot of people liked the Wilderness palette, is because it was reds and greens and blues and like a couple browns in one palette, a one-stop shop. And I'm like, I get that. I get having all those colors in one palette is exciting, but I just kind of felt like I had them. All right, the next one is Odin's Eye Norns. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, but Odin's Eye came out with this palette and I hadn't tried any of their eyeshadows yet. So this was during that time where I was like, I need to find a color story of theirs that I like, because I was curious and I really wanted to try their eyeshadows. So this palette came out. I was intrigued and it enticed me at first, but I think that last row just kind of killed it for me, and I don't know what it is. It might have been the orange. Like, the last row was all shimmers. I kind of just found that there were like a couple colors that I might not use. So I think that I was just trying to tell myself that I do like the palette. I mean, I do objectively like it. Like, the colors are really nice and deep and I liked that. But yeah, something just kind of told me like, nah, you don't really need this one. Now that I've tried Odin's Eyes eyeshadows, I have the Hummingbird and the Red Dragon palette. Their formula is very good. Like, very good. Like, both mattes and shimmers. You can't go wrong. But that's not to say that I'm like, okay, I need to go like find their other palettes. Like, even like their 5 pans, they had like green ones. There was one with all shimmers. And I was like, I want to like these. I want to be more into them than I am, because I liked the idea and I like what they were going for. And I wanted to try it. But I was just like, there's just something telling me no. I feel like maybe I'm liking a couple of those mini palettes like a little bit more. But yeah, again, I don't want to like buy too many palettes right now because I want to actually use them. I don't want to just use them once and then be like, okay. Artist Couture Supreme Nudes. This palette I'm still going back and forth on, because a part of me is like, you have enough neutrals. then another part of me is like, but I want to try this. I love the packaging. It looks very sleek, kind of luxe. And the color story is just nice. Like, I love that there's an olive green shimmer with these neutrals. Like, that just really like calls to me. But I think there's just something that just keeps telling me like, no, don't do it. And I can't really put my finger on it. I guess from like me already having neutrals. And I've heard that this palette is a really, really, really nice palette. I just, yeah. I don't know, like, even like his other palette he came out with, Ethereal Dream, I thought that that looked pretty, but again, I was just like, you have this, stop. And I guess that that's just something that I tell myself, either that I have it or you're not going to use these tones as much as you think you are. Like, it's good to have certain colors, but don't try to go overboard with them because you don't use them a lot. Like, that's me with pastels. I don't use pastels a lot at all, so I only have like 2 pastel palettes and I'm done. I'm not gonna buy anymore. I guess spring colors, like, they're fun and cute, but I just don't use them all the time. I'm likely to use the Supreme Nudes more, like I am. And if I have it in my hands one day, then I have it in my hands one day. Yeah, it was just kind of like a little devil on my shoulder telling me like, no, like, do you really need this? And maybe if the palette was smokier and like deeper, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. But it's a little light. And the world is simply not big enough for the amount of light neutral eyeshadows that are that are here in this world. The next 2 are controversial. I'll save the most controversial for last. Kaleidos Flower Punk. This is another palette that, again, I still kind of want. I do want this palette. I do want it because I love the pinky tones. I think that they're quite interesting. And I just think this color story overall is very, very cute. I think I was just kind of stopping myself because I was like, you have this, but then I'm kind of telling myself like, no, I don't. But I feel like the pinks would be pretty unique to my collection, and maybe even the greens, because not all like grungy greens are the same. I guess it was just another one of those things where I'm like, what if I don't use it? What if I'm like, oh yeah, I'm happy I have this, and then I don't use it? Because it's just happened to me like so many times with my palettes where I don't want to get rid of them, but I also don't touch them. And that's a very like, it's not the best way to be, you know, and I just wasn't sure if that would happen with this. Even though I know it's not that expensive, I do want to try their lip clays because the way people describe their lip clays, the formula sounds very similar to M Cosmetics Infinite Lip Cloud, the way that people describe them. So I would love to like try it. So maybe if I do, I would get this palette as well. I guess I just like, I wasn't as like running to the website like, oh, I need this, you know. And I also wasn't sure if it was going to be limited edition, but yeah, it's still available, and who knows. I love the packaging and I love the removable top. Who knows, my mind could change tomorrow. Be like, nah, I'm okay. Right, the last palette, it just got its second version. And I don't like the second version. It's not even something of like, ooh, do I want it? Do I not? I don't want it. But the first version, this palette is Lunar Beauty Moonspell Volume 1. It's pretty. It is very, very, very pretty. And I love the fucking book. Okay, I love this. I actually gave this to my sister for Christmas. And even then, as I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, this is very pretty. I always like look at, whenever I buy somebody makeup for a gift, I always look at it first. For one thing, to make sure it's not broken, but another thing to like kind of just admire it. So I did that with this palette and it's very pretty. The top row, I don't think I would use. Again, with the purples, like there are warm tone purples in this palette that I probably would use. The cool tone one wouldn't get touched. The silver wouldn't get touched. I would use the bottom 2 rows, which I guess could be justifiable to some people, but to me it's not, because how much was it? Like 58 or something, or 50 something, I'm not really sure. I was just like, I can't bring myself to buy it. Like, and it is discontinued. She is no longer with us. I don't really find myself being like, oh darn, and like kicking things and then trying to look for it on Poshmark. Like, I'm just not finding that. And so when he announced the second version, I was like, okay, yeah, let's see how this one is. Maybe I'll like this one just a little more. But Which is another reason why I hate the amount of purples in the second one. I'm like, you already did that in the first one. Like, you have like 4 in there, right? I love it for people that have it, and I love it for people that love it. But for me, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I just couldn't like justify it, even as pretty as it is. Like, I think really hard about makeup sometimes. It's pretty rare that I impulse buy. Like, it's very easy for me to want a blush, to want a highlighter, even though I haven't really been fawning over new highlighters lately. But it's just very easy for me to want like those kinds of things. And when it comes to eyeshadow palettes, I really analyze it, because it's like, you're getting a lot of things in this little component. So it's like, okay, what am I gonna use? I think the more that I look at my collection and the more that I get realistic with myself, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, you like it, and sure, maybe there are some things in this that would add on to your collection, but would you use it though? It is kind of one of those things where it's like, well, you don't know until you buy it. And it's like, but I don't want to buy it to find out. Like, I want to buy it knowing the first look I'm gonna do when I get it. It's a lot to think about, but I guess it's just better than just being like, okay, yeah, buy, like, woo, capitalism. You know, like, it's good to have some criticism. So those were all of the palettes that I can't bring myself to buy, at least right now. There are like 2 or 3 of them that I still kind of want, and that I still might find myself using one day. And maybe I could be totally wrong, right? Maybe I could use this palette and I find myself reaching for it a lot, or it does add some variety to my collection, or whatever it is. And I hope this video wasn't too repetitive, because as I was talking, I was like, I feel like I'm saying the same shit. But I feel like a lot of things come out that are pretty to look at, but they're not new. And they're not new to us. They're not new to our collections. And honestly, I'm still kind of clocking myself for wanting the ASBTA Tropical Vibes palette. To an extent, we like what we like, but once we start buying things that all look the same, I think that it's kind of an issue. And I'm starting to get more critical about the blushes that I like. I'm like, I feel like you already have this tone of peach. You know, same with highlighter. And it's just important to keep it versatile and different and exciting, most of all. To anybody who celebrates Thanksgiving, I hope you have a nice time. I hope that it's peaceful. If you have to see family that you're dreading to see, I'm very sorry. It really sucks. If you're thinking about not going, but you feel bad, don't feel bad. If you have the freedom to not go, then don't go. Like, I'm kind of piggybacking off of Emily Hanhan's video. They just did a whole video about like, just don't go to family gatherings if you don't want to go, which I recommend you watch. It really spoke to me. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, like, holidays can be a tough time, especially if your family isn't very pleasant. Holidays should be enjoyable. They really should be. And I hope that if you have the freedom to actually do it, spending time with people that you actually want to spend time with and doing things you actually want to do, then just put yourself first. Starting this year, just put yourself first. If they're unavoidable, then they're unavoidable, and I wish you all the best. Yeah, that's basically it. I'm gonna stop. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter, which is Gabrielle rizz__. You have been a lovely audience, and I'll talk to you later.